Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us at our premier lecture series. And today we have a very interesting lecture by one, an architect, and one, the energy consultant or green building consultant that has created this wonderful building, which is an industrial building, but does not look or feel like an industrial building. So, which is the Paramit Factory. Yeah? And with us today, we have John Bulcock and Reimann.
Yes. Hi.
Yes. Hi. Oh, hi, Gregis.
Yes. We're here. Hello.
Hi. Yeah. Gregis is an energy consultant and has been involved in a lot of projects in Malaysia and has become more Malaysia than his Danish roots. Yeah. Where we also have John Bulcock, which is of British nationality, but also is practicing in Malaysia. Yeah, as an architect, and he has authored this beautiful building through a competition, and has won multiple awards. Yeah, and with us today we have also our president for Architude. Architude is the University Malaya's student body for architecture. Yeah, Mio. Hi, Mio.
Hi,
Yeah,
everyone.
and we also have the head of department's representative from the Department of Architecture of University Malaya, Dr. Asrul. Hi, Dr. Asrul. Okay?
Oh, hello. Okay. Hello, everyone.
So without further ado, let's invite Dr. Asrul for a few words from the department.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Architect Sarli, Associate Professor Industry Architect Sarli, and for everybody's information, this is, I think, the series 3 of the Premier Lecture Series, which has been in program. And I'd like to also welcome John and Gregor. I hope you enjoy nasi lemak and teh tarik of.
We do.
Being in Malaysia. Good, huh? Yeah, and technically speaking, in University of Malaya, in the Faculty of Built Environment, the Department of Architecture has about 18, 19 staff, including 2 associate professor industry, and one of them, obviously, over here, the handsome architect Sarli. And yeah, and then we have also emeritus professor, adjunct professor. This is Hijaz Kasturi, and this Premier Lecture Series is part under SUPRI. It's not pronounced SUPRI, but SUPRI. Means for Center for Sustainable Urban Planning and Real Estate. And on top of that, we also have the called BUCTA, Center for Building, Construction and Tropical Architecture. So with these 2 research centers, they have their activities, and Architect Sarli is being one of them, is under SUPRI. Without further ado, thank you very much, Architect Sarli. Thank you, John. Thank you, Mr. Gregor.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mio, care to give a few words on behalf of the students?
Yeah, thank you, Sally, for the introductions. So on behalf of the students, UM Architecture Student Associations, first I would like to give a warm welcome to our guests, Mr. Gregis and Mr. John, as our guest speaker tonight to share with us their knowledge. So these continuations of the Premier Lecture Series actually is a highlight of the effort between Architude and the faculty to bring something positive to the table. And what's better way to do so than a platform to share knowledge and opinions between the industry and students. So hopefully that this Premier Lecture Series can be one of the strategies to enhance the sharing of knowledge through the digital platform. And we hope to continue creating engagement between the industry and academia members. So, okay, I think that's all. Please, everyone, enjoy tonight's lecture and do ask the speaker whatever you wish to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Mio. Well said. Without further ado, I would like to welcome John and Gregis to share their screen and give their presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
The floor is yours, gentlemen.
Okay.
Yes. Can you see our slides?
Yes, yes.
Great. All right. Let's see. We just need to change. Okay.
Okay, thank you for having us for this talk. We're happy to be here, Gregors and I. And this is the Paramit Factory in the forest. We were the architects and Gregors was the green consultant for the project. We worked very closely together. We like to give our projects, all our projects actually, a slightly poetic name, we called this one Factory in the Forest. And I think as architects, this is what we do. We are touching lives, not only of our clients, but of everybody who experiences the building, walks past the building, visits the building. Okay.
Yes, so I'll just explain a little bit about the process, because it was quite interesting for this particular project that the client was very clear on what he wanted, namely energy efficient building, because this was going to be a factory with high energy consumption. So he basically wanted low operating costs. He knew energy efficiency would have a good payback time. And he wanted a healthy and sustainable building, basically a high performing building. So for this particular project, the client actually looked for the green building consultant first. So that was me. And I think that has never happened to me before in all my time in Malaysia. So he liked what we were doing. And then he asked me to basically recommend 3 good architects that were good at environmental design that we could work well together with. So I did so, and then we had a architectural competition with these 3 architectural firms where John ended up winning.
And it didn't start off too well, because as soon as we heard about the competition, I had to go on an overseas trip, unavoidable overseas trip straight away. So actually at first I thought I wouldn't be able to participate, but I got back with about 10 days to go. A week before the competition, we had nothing down on paper actually, but then we just worked hard, and the last week we pulled it out a little bit. It's not moving. Okay. This is a little bit of our philosophy. In nature, as in art, we cannot be told what to think. Can you move on? Yeah. So as Greg has said, the key client requirements were for a passive and active design building and a sustainable building. Next, yeah. Okay, this also part of our philosophy is, what is a sustainable building? Well, of course, reduced impact on nature is very obvious. Comfort of people is a must. But for us, the psychological well-being and the stimulation of people is a must as well. This one, if any of these are missing, for us, it's not a sustainable building.
I think you just scroll one down.
All right, okay. The building is in Penang. It's actually on the mainland, Penang Science Park, just on the mainland, Penang Island, and yeah. So as we know, can we get rid of that one? Mm-hmm. As we know, Penang is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So Georgetown, this is Georgetown here, but also the natural environment, the flora and fauna of Penang is very unique, and it creates a unique sense of space. And trees are vital to this heritage and the ecosystems of Penang, but much is being lost, we think, due to the rate of development. And it was important to us to include Penang's indigenous trees in the project to stimulate and educate. So the face, what we wanted was a healthy, sustainable building to become the face of the building. So actually we wanted the forest right from the word go to be the face of this building. And as industrial parks tend to be pretty soulless places, generally, unfortunately, we wanted to create something a little different and create a stimulating, meaningful and working environment for the client and all their employees, not just the bosses. To include Penang's indigenous. So this is the Penang Science Park here. Our site, 5-acre site is here. So together with the client, what we were thinking was that if just imagine that if the whole park could take the same sort of concept as we have at Paramit, not the same building design, but the same environmental design of contact with nature, then the whole of this park would become a green space for the enjoyment and the stimulation and education of the people who work here. So really it became like a starter for the science park, or it could have done rather. As you see, a very soulless place, very typical of science parks. When we start a project, we look at the passive design first. So we look at the orientation of the building, the shading, using landscape for shading, natural light, natural ventilation, low maintenance materials, etc., insulating roofs. So these are very normal for us, all our projects, large and small. So here I say the essence of architecture is not about aesthetics, it's about space and how we as individuals react and relate to space. For us as architects, this is fundamental. Okay, so the components of the factory. So this was part of the competition. I'll just put a few slides of the competition here. So this is a diagrammatic plan of the building where we have the road at the front here. This is the beginning of the forest, which became the car park. The forest steps up over 3 levels here, down into the ground again for the courtyard, and then surrounds the whole building. In essence, this is what the whole building was about. So we have office, courtyard, production, and then the forest surrounding and over it. That translated into a more detailed plan, which this is the ground floor plan. We have 2 fair-faced concrete blade walls here, which let a glimpse into the courtyard here and funnels the air flow in, the breeze in here. And it also gives privacy to the courtyard because we expand out for the cafeteria into the courtyard. We have benches and seats around, so people use it throughout the day in their breaks. So this was the main car park area, which we wanted as green as possible. And then surrounding the building, production here, cafeteria here, locker room here. This is the main entrance. It's a glass, full height glass faceted entrance underneath the first floor, which is this one. So again, this was the below. This was the lobby, and this is a triple height volume space with the offices either end. And we designed it in such a way that these offices could sort of expand and contract. So we had the main office like there and like here, and meeting rooms or small offices could sort of grow off that. So we could have an extra office here, an extra office here. This was the concept. And then with a 2-story storage at the back here. Then up to the next level, which is all roof garden with a boardroom and function space, and avoid looking down to the office below. And then the canopy, this is the canopy here, which actually covers the car park, the roof gardens here, the 2 levels of roof gardens, and the courtyard level. It shades these areas. Now these are just a few images from our competition, and you'll see later on when I show you the slides, it really didn't change very much at all. Actually, it looks pretty much like this. Okay, the design and construction process, a little bit how we work as architects. So structure and material, we like to express the structure and materials to explain what the building is, what it is made of, and how it is put together. This runs through our work as well, and also this factory in the forest. So just very briefly, we start with the key plans, as most architects do. We start with the key plans, then go up to the next level of scale, and then up to a larger level of scale, and then we pick out details of all this, of all the necessary areas. And then from some of the details, then we pick out further details. So we go up and up scales. We end up with a lot of drawings always. Then when we get to site, we have a lot of mock-ups. You can see here, this is the mock-up area. This was all taken away afterwards. As you can see, we had mock-ups, obviously, the fair-face concrete and the columns and the connectors. But not only that, we also look at the cable trays, look at conduits, even how the alarm works, things like this. So we look at all areas of the building. Always on site, I have a notepad with me, and then these are some of the sketches, just typical sketches of a particular day, sorting out problems at the site. And then also with the services as well. This, you know, we work closely with the contractors and the consultants to ensure we get what we want in terms of the services, to make sure they're in the right place, neatly done, and they are designed what they're supposed to do. So we draw everything first. So here's just a section of the ducts and how the daylight comes in. So we know completely. We don't leave it to others to design. We design it. And then to get this is a view of the production area. So you can see, and this is how we ended up. This is another of our very rough sketches from site, because normally the M&E consultants and the contractor would work this out, but we need to make sure these are all exposed, the services. So we need to make sure they are extremely neat. So all these services which running throughout the building are exposed, and they had to go in the correct order, so they're not falling over each other. So we work this out, give it to the contractor to do a shop drawing, and then we end up with our desired result, which is the services running around exactly as we want them. If we don't do this, it will not work out this way. We know this from experience. Again, we work out all the services together with the engineers, of course, but we make sure we get what we want architecturally. Now this is, Greg will talk a bit more about this. This is the PEX pipes, the radiant cooling system in the floor. So Greg, you want to talk
Yeah. So this is one of the innovations of the factory. Because this factory has a lot of ovens that are sort of heating things for this electronics factory, we need to remove a lot of heat. So a very efficient way of doing that is to cool down the whole slab of the factory to about 21 degrees. And then this big concrete slab is basically absorbing heat throughout the day and night. And the advantage of a floor slab cooling system is that it runs at a much higher efficiency than a normal chiller. So we actually laid about 65 kilometers of pipes. These PEX pipes is sort of a plastic that can be bent. Each loop is about 100 meters, and then it goes back to sort of a central manifold. So people are always worried, oh, what happens if you have a leak and so on. So of course you pressure test them first. And once they can hold the pressure for 24 hours, then you can pour the concrete. And then they're basically embedded in the concrete for the lifetime of the building. They can last about 100 years. So very good lifespan. Yeah.
Okay, and so this is just before, obviously, the concrete was about to be poured. And then these areas here are where the manifolds are going to come when they go back up to the chiller. So we have, I can't remember how these, we have a number of these around the building, in the completed building. Of course, they have a cover on. This was a fair-face concrete building, and so we had to detail all the formwork as well as the concrete as well. So this was part of the office area of the triple height volume. So you can see all the formwork had to be cut to size and laid over. So we have to spend a lot of time on site doing this, as well as doing the walls as well. Oops. To get the desired result of the timber formwork. So all these services, the lights, the services, all had to be thought about. I mean, of course it had to be thought about, but it had to be designed properly. Just because there's no room for mistakes when it's fair-face concrete. Okay, the building. So this was the finished building. This was taken in about the same month as it was completed, about 3 years ago. And so the forest was just put in as a, you see, we've got some sort of planting already, or some sort of mass of the planting, but it's not a forest yet, of course. So again, this was the first month. You can see we have the planting beds going through, these tree belts going through. And because we wanted so much landscape in this, that we decided that in fact, we do this in most projects. We don't put in large trees. We put in small trees, and it costs 100 ringgit, 200 ringgit, something like this, or less. And we put a lot of them in immediately. So we immediately get an effect. We immediately get a spatial effect that we want, even though it's just been planted a month, this one, something like that. So within this planting bed here, I think we put about 12 different trees species, or maybe similar species, but 12 trees in here, plus the ground cover. We interviewed, before we chose the structure engineer, we interviewed a few engineers. All the engineers said this couldn't be done, this big cantilever concrete box. But we stuck with it, and we eventually teamed up with Web Structures, who are really good engineers, fantastic structure engineers. And of course, they made it work, this cantilever box, which was important to us. So you can see, now, this was taken quite recently. You can see how these planting beds have actually come up, and the whole forest is now taking shape. This was an earlier one. This is the first floor office area. So you can see the sort of undulating facade of it. The first floor roof garden, and the second floor roof garden here, and projecting block, all shaded by the canopy overhead.
Maybe I can just chip in on the shading, because this photo is, you can see from the boardroom sticking out. So the sun is actually very low here. This is evening sun. So the photographer, of course, likes to have all this sun coming in. It looks nicer, but actually this whole canopy louver roof was designed to let in the morning sun. But once you get to about noon, and definitely the whole afternoon, it completely shades the building. So at the hottest time of the day, you are actually in the shade. So even though you see a lot of the sun on these photos, it's actually very well shaded.
Oh, dear.
The arrows right now.
Sorry, you've got a bit of problem with the arrow, with the thing here.
Mm.
Okay, so again, as Greg has just said, this will be in the morning. This shot here, because we've got by about 12 noon, you would not get any sun on the roof gardens and here and on the ground here. This is a recent shot, so you can see from the car park here, it's actually taking shape. And we encourage the client to keep it a little wild. You'll see some later, and it is quite wild. We don't want it to be manicured. So again, this is an early shot. You can see the planting beds within quite a lot of trees in them, which then will expand out. Also, we want, you want to do it?
Yeah.
We want the surfaces to be as soft as possible. We want minimum hard surfaces, because if we have hard surfaces, they heat up during the day. Then when the sun goes down, the heat radiates back out around the building. So, but if we keep them as green as possible, we reduce the ambient temperature around the building. So you can see from these ones, the roads in the car park area were as green as possible as well, using grasscrete. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Then another shot. So this was actually a view of the entrance for the employees. So the bus drops them off on the road, and then they have this covered walkway in. Places to sit, we put all over the building, encouraging people out into the landscape. So now, next one. Okay, this is the can we go back? Yeah, this is the entrance. The main entrance with the courtyard behind here. You can see through here, the courtyard here. And then on the ground, this is all we have. We have a lot of hard surfaces underneath where nothing will grow much. Underneath there, we have hard surfaces where people can sit. The concrete is cool because it's shaded, and people congregate here in their breaks. Then inside, this is the triple volume entrance reception area. The ground floor here coming up 2 levels. Again, Web Structures designed this cantilever staircase. It's not touching the column here. It's a few inches away from it. It just sits in space, this cantilevered staircase. You can see the fairface concrete, the impression of the formwork all the way around here. You can just about see some glimpses of the planting. So we come up to the higher levels. You can see we've got the roof gardens. Either side of this, to the left and right, we've got offices, but we can actually have this contact with nature, which is what we want. Like this. Yeah. Okay, this is part of the office as well. And our offices, so this will be a meeting room or an office, a typical office. So this is the sort of ambience that we achieve. Surfaces exposed, polished concrete floors. We also wanted, we named all the rooms after the plants in the forest, or as many as possible. So each room, small or large, we gave a name, and it had this sort of very sort of translucent, you can just about see up here, the name of the plant. And then what we did, the architects drew the plants, more of a stylized sort of aspect of the plants, and then a sort of a technical sheet, just to strengthen the connection with the forest and with nature. So people working inside, they could sort of go and explore a bit and look at it. And so we did this for all the rooms, hundreds of drawings, I think there were. And these were drawn by Eugene Lim, actually, who was with us at that time. So beautiful drawings. And we printed it onto canvas, black and white, and each space within the whole factory and the office have these prints. This was, of course, we want as much on natural light as possible. So of course we get some within the double glazed facades, but we also wanted some come into the center, which are these elements here. And then we doubled it up as sort of benches up on the roof garden here, which is something like this. So we actually get some natural light coming into the middle of the office here. This is a drawing, of course. And so these are the light wells with the benches surrounded by planting. Now it's grown up and you can hardly see these, which is something like this. Okay, so we also, around the site, around the roof gardens, the courtyard, we want to encourage people out to sit, to meet in their breaks, get out into the fresh air, into nature. And so all over the building, we created these benches, whether they're planting ones like this, planting box ones like this, or metal ones like this, with the skylights, to encourage people out. So now it's grown up to something like this. So the roof gardens, as I mentioned, we want them to be as wild as possible. And they basically have covered the building, which is fine by us. With the fairface concrete and the planting, it makes a really beautiful texture. The trees come up from the ground through the roof garden. And as you can see, it's pretty wild. So we create these paths where you can actually walk all the way around, and it's actually pretty breezy. Looking down into the courtyard here. you can see how we get this flow of landscape coming down from the top level, the second floor roof garden, down onto the first floor roof garden, and then down into the car park here, all shaded by the canopy, all encouraging people out into nature. This was an early shot, but you can, because this courtyard now is completely full of trees. But you can see here, I put this in because you can actually see the building quite well here. This is the factory with its north-facing skylights marching right across. So the whole of the factory floor receives natural light throughout the day. This is taken from the roof garden here. And we have a link bridge linking the office level down to the production. So all levels are linked by this link bridge. You can see here, this is a series of rainwater spouts, which actually let the water free flow off the roof into a catchment area here, and then to a harvest tank to be reused. The same on the office side here. We have these series of spouts from all the levels, which free flow down to this level, then free flow down to this level. And so we actually experience all the rainwater flowing to the harvest tank, which is quite a nice connection. You actually see the water, and then it's reused for landscape irrigation. Courtyard again, with the 2 levels of roof garden. Yeah. So the link bridge, as I mentioned, is the link between the office and the factory. This is underneath the link bridge, which is very shaded, of course. So we get put seats here as well as out in this area here. Now the link bridge is primarily a circulation space, but it also doubles up as, we didn't want it just to be circulation. So we actually wanted to make it a space in its own right. And we created this sort of lecture theatre or gathering space, or a place to meet friends, a place to have coffee, use your laptop and sit on your own quietly. But later the client liked this, and so they actually added in a projector and a screen, and so it actually became it's a non-aircon lecture theatre view. But we can open up the glass louver side, and it's quite breezy. Yeah, and it also becomes a coffee place as well, a place to stop and meet. The cafeteria expands out into the courtyard. Again, we want to use all these areas. So even on the roof gardens, you can have meetings out there. You can bring your clients here. They can bring their clients. They can meet their colleagues for coffee. Just take out to be quiet, sit with their laptop and a cup of coffee. So, yeah. So I mentioned about the rainwater. So here are the spouts that you can, which are discharging water from the factory. These are the factory roof here, and then from the office and the roof gardens. These are the spouts come all the way along here, which actually then flow all the way down to the ground. So it flows here. We see it falling. It flows into a catchment here. Underground, under the roof garden, into a catchment here, and then down to the ground. And off the main factory, there's a lot of water flowing down this one. So what we like to heighten our awareness to these tropical storms. You know, again, it's about our senses, stimulating our senses, and as well as the practical use for landscape irrigation. It's good to see the water here that we're going to see coming out of a tap somewhere else. And when we get into the factory production itself, we have this connection with the courtyard here. Everywhere within the factory, wherever you're working, you have a connection with nature, with green, with natural light. This is actually a more recent shot where it has grown up quite a lot. Yeah, in the production area. So, and we get natural light. You can see here the light. These are the reflector panels from the skylights right across the factory floor. Then the facades of the building, both facades of the building, also we have this connection with nature. This is by way of these freestanding concrete fins like this, we get protection from the sun, but it allows us to have this full height glazing along the clear story on the top and then between the fins. So we can have this connection, which is very important to us. Externally, it looks like this, these fins, and these march all the way down the side, like this. And we actually use this language as well to actually protect the service area at the rear. So we have these concrete fins marching along. Inside, we have all the services. Okay, then Gregors can talk a bit about this concept.
Yes. Yeah, so this is the sawtooth factory roof. So this was something that John wanted from the beginning, and one of the items we discussed which way to orient. So these are turned towards the north, and we did a lot of simulations on these, and along the way we needed a few more, I think. So the spacing was a bit too big in the beginning, so through simulation we optimized the spacing. This is another look where you have a sort of a few more ray tracing. So imagine each of these roof lights get basically light from these low angles coming in, and this is where the sun is not. So that means it's actually soft and diffuse light coming down, except for certain months of the year where the sun sets to the northwest. So we do get the sun at sort of around the yellow rays here. And that's why we had to put in a deflector panel at the back, so no one would get this direct low angle sun in their eyes. So it would basically hit this panel and then diffuse nicely in the space. So actually the photo here at the bottom right shows the factory hall before all the equipment was put in. This was on a sunny afternoon at 2 p.m. And you can see the daylight is very nice and soft because we are just taking in the diffuse light. And we measured about 600 lux, which is just nice for a factory environment where you need a bit higher light level in this case, because they do electronics and some fine detailed work. We also did a lot of simulations for glare. And this really, to me, shows the power of simulation, because this photo on the left circle is a simulation. And then 1 year later, we took a photo. So that's an actual photo, and you can see they are very similar. So you can actually, through simulation, really predict the performance and how things will look. And on the right, this is a glare analysis where you can see some of these top windows had a bit of glare, but this is where landscape would then grow up and actually eliminate this glare problem over time. So I think early days we had to put in some blinds on some of these windows. So this slide just shows some of the passive design features. I think we've gone through quite a few of them. I can just mention on the big roof slab, which is chilled down, we had to insulate that. So we also did some quite extensive simulation studies to optimize the insulation, and we found that at the perimeter we had to insulate 8 times more than in the center of the factory, because this is where you have the highest heat flow at the perimeter. So we could actually end up using less insulation than we had originally budgeted for. On the active design, we, in addition to this floor slab cooling, which delivers 1/3 of the cooling, we had, in a way, a normal air conditioning system, except we used a dedicated outdoor air system, which did all the dehumidification. And once that was done, then a normal air handling unit would top up the cooling, but only the sensible cooling if additional temperature adjustment was needed. So this diagram shows the cooling system, maybe a little bit complicated, but basically 1/3 of the cooling from the floor slab and 2/3 from the air conditioning. And the good thing about this floor slab is it has very high efficiency chiller. In this case, it was a magnetic bearing chiller. And because the chilled water temperature is at 17 degrees instead of normal chillers that deliver 6 or 7 degrees, the COP, or the coefficient of performance, was very high, around 10. We also captured some of the exhaust air and did energy recovery on that, recouping about 35% of the energy. So all this helped to increase the energy efficiency. So one interesting thing about this factory was that we designed it so efficiently, and also all the systems in the building itself were very efficient. So that allowed us to actually downsize the cooling system quite substantially. So instead of having almost 900 plus refrigerant ton cooling system, our simulation showed that we could actually downsize this system to less than half, and thereby we saved 1.2 million US dollars straight off the bat in the capital expenditure. For this factory, it was quite interesting because the old factory was also found in Penang. So we could compare the energy bills of the old factory with the new factory, and we saw a drop of 40% in the measured energy consumption. So the client was very happy about that because he wanted an energy efficient building, and that's what he got. And equally important is that it's actually a really nice workspace. We did a anonymous occupant survey where I think 141 staff took the survey, and we asked them to mention what do you like about the building. And you can see that about a third said contact with nature, and another third said that it was just a beautiful building design. And these are sort of free essay answers, so it's not, we sort of grouped them together in these categories. And then about 16% said it was a very conducive work environment. So basically very good feedback. We also asked them, what do you dislike about the building? And the third most common answer was there was nothing they disliked about the building. So that's also a good feedback. There is actually a video done earlier this year that takes you through the whole building. So if you want to see some moving images and some animations in the cooling system and so on, you can access that video on this link. So I'll hand back to John to finish off.
So this was a statement I made to our excellent client, Bilu Rato, who we have to mention his name. He was the driving force behind this and so encouraging. But Bilu liked this statement that I made quite early on. The buildings must belong to their climate, to belong to their culture, to belong to architecture. And the building has got a number of awards, and we'd like to thank you for listening, everybody.
Thank you.
And this is the team. This is the team here. So,
wow.
Q&A time.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, John and Gregis. It's a beautiful building. I think, you know, if people were shown the image, nobody would have guessed it was a factory. And that is, I think, your biggest success.
Yes, we get that comment a lot that it's not like a factory, but we say, well, what's a factory?
Exactly, exactly. There are lots of questions from our audience. Yeah, so before I go to those questions, I myself am wondering the coordination with the engineers. It's a fair-faced concrete building. Obviously, there's a lot of coordination with the structural engineer, and a lot of the ideas were quite brave in terms of structure. I mean, like you have your large cantilevers, you have your floating staircases, you have a lot of those thin walls were actually blocks. I saw. So, I mean, how do you actually hand this work with the engineer? How does it begin? Does the engineer give input as well, or is it all from you, or
how we work generally with engineers? We design the building and we sort of design the structure as well. Of course, we are not structure engineers. We don't design it fully, but we give the sort of we give them the sort of sizes we're looking at. Maybe it's the size of the columns, the thickness of a slab. So we give them very tight margins to work with. And very often they can't do it, but at least we start off with the smallest rather than the largest. And then we sort of work up a little bit. But with web structures, they were pretty much able to do a lot of things that we wanted, I have to say. Yeah. I mean, with the services engineer, I mean, we had service engineer and we had IEN, Gregors, and the Green, who working closely together, all of us working closely together.
Right.
You need to lead the team, essentially. You got to, you have to, there has to be, I mean, it's the architect, of course, who's leading the team, and the architect has to have a clear idea of what they want, a very, very clear idea of the architectural intent, and you have to stick with it, basically. Right. And you all know, all you architects, you know this, right? Of course, but it's very easy to get sidetracked, do things a bit easier, and take a shortcut. And you can't do that. You have to really stick with your idea, and it's not always easy, but it's worth it.
Yeah, it takes a lot of perseverance and effort.
Patience.
Looking at the coordination, it's a lot of time spent, since you're based in KL, so yes. A lot of traveling there and a lot of personal touch as well today.
Yes. Every week on site, we were sometimes 2 or 3 days. It was a big commitment for us. But we want to do it right. This client was so good. You would walk through fire for this client. So
wow. Okay. The first question that was asked by Ming Shen Lim was again about the structure. How did the columns look so slim?
Yes. Again, we wanted very slim. We wanted slimmer than this, if I remember right. But we again, as I just explained, we told them at first we want it to be like this, and yeah, they achieved it. Mainly, they achieved it. So I think we would never give a drawing to a structure engineer with no input about size of things. We wouldn't do that because you don't know what you're going to get back.
Right.
And so that's why we said we want them to be this slender, this proportion. So, and then you're amazed, and especially with good engineers, they will perform. We work closely with them.
Yeah. I think it's a little bit the same with energy, right? Where you see a lot of oversizing of cooling systems. So that was the same for this building, where we actually managed to reduce the cooling system by more than 50 or to less than half.
Right.
So if you don't have a good engineer or someone who can stand up to the let's say the consultants, then you will get all this over design. But if you hire good consultants, you can actually slim down all this over design.
True. Chia Yvonne asks, on the technical side, may I know how you ensure that there will be no leakage in the radiant floor cooling systems?
Yeah, I mean, you basically, before you pour the concrete, you pressure test it, and there will only be a leak if you then drill into the floor, through the reinforced concrete, and then hit the pipe. So these pipes are quite deeply embedded. I can't remember how far down.
75. We can drill down to, I think, to 75 millimeters, I think, if I remember rightly.
Yeah.
But not beyond that.
Yeah. But if you do hit, if you for some reason do drill and you get the leak, then it is actually possible to repair these pipes. So you hack down. There's a repair kit where you replace the little pipe segment with some sort of clips, and then you repair it up, and then it's functional again. If you cannot hack down, then the other option is just to switch off that particular loop of pipe, like this 100 meters pipe loop. So that one will then be have no water, but the rest will still be working fine.
Right. Yingzi Puan asked, any chance to explore the canopy to harvest energy, like solar panels?
There is. We did, actually, it was more for the roof, the factory roof, we looked into that. But actually the client wasn't too, actually, maybe you're better to talk about that.
Yeah. It was looked at the time. Solar panels were not yet really a good investment. So, you know, solar panel prices have really dropped over the last few years.
Yes.
So if we were to do that roof design again, we would definitely make it solar ready for the factory part, and maybe even for the canopy part and the front as well.
But the thing about the canopy, we wanted, I mean, the rain comes through there, and actually we wanted that. So of course, if you start covering with solar panels, it won't be, or not so much. So,
but if I'm not mistaken, IEN, Gregors, you guys have also done quite extensive glare studies with this roof system, right? It resulted in some standards as well. So,
we. That's right. I mean, concurrent with this, we went to 6 different buildings in Malaysia to do glare photography. So this special camera, and then we came up with, I would say, the first tropical glare prediction formula, which was published in a first-tier journal, and which is now being translated into various software, so you can actually select this glare formula for glare studies, because it's quite a complicated formula.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure. But just to highlight, I mean, like, it's pretty rare that firms do actually involve themselves in research, and a lot of them are just practitioners, but they do not actually create new things. So I'm just amazed at the work that IEN has done. Yeah.
Thank you. And I would actually say for daylighting, the key to good daylighting is actually glare. If you don't get glare protection, then people will cover up the windows, and then it will just stay in place for the rest of the lifetime of the building. So, being sensitive to glare and making visually pleasant environments indoors is very important, and not just getting the daylight in, because if it's glary, it will be a white elephant on day one.
Norsia Ahmad asked, was there any problem with Malaysia's high humidity that had to be addressed?
I think, again, people are always a bit worried with the when we do the floor slab cooling, where we cool down the surface to about 20 degrees, whether humidity will get in and then compensate on the floor.
Right.
But this factory is 24-hour air conditioned, so it's actually not a problem. But we did have some, I mean, we wanted it to be as airtight as possible, this factory, also just for the production, because it's sort of almost like a semi-clean room environment with all this electronics. So we did have to come back and patch up a few leakages, especially where the walls meet the roof, where there can be some cracks. But I don't think we had any condensation problems. I mean, we deliberately didn't put these chilled water pipes near the loading bay, so when that bay opens and closes and the moist air comes in, it doesn't immediately hit a cold patch of floor.
Yeah, I think this one is for John. Ivan Chai asked, how do the zigzag roofs discard rainwater? What is the angle of the roof to channel the rainwater to the rain spill pipe?
It Well, half of the volume of water goes to the courtyard side, let's call it the front, and half goes to the back. And so the roof, the small area of roof between the skylights, you basically became gutters. So they are the gutters.
Right.
And halfway along, we have like a high point, and we get drainings to the front and the back, as I mentioned. Because we were using a membrane, a very good quality membrane, we have a very low pitch, around about 1 degree, if I remember right. Something like that, yeah. So, yeah.
I think there's a lot of reaction to your structure comment here. Say, for example, Alice Lim asked, can you give some examples of sizing structures here? And then Architect Mustafa asked, how was the boardroom supported in that diagonal position with differences of length of cantilevers?
Wow.
Wow.
I think we need Pekha here, right?
yeah, we should have brought her in.
Yeah. The first one was, how do we size? Is it?
Yeah, can you give some examples of sizing structures here?
I mean, we size architecturally. So sometimes we might want something a little larger, but normally we want something quite slender. So we'll try and get away with as thin as possible can be. I mean, sometimes engineers laugh at us when we go in, but with our drawings. But we do it architecturally, more, what proportion we want. And then we work with engineers to try and achieve it. And maybe it has to go up a little bit. And if we're still okay with it, we'll redraw it and we'll redraw it and we'll model it ourselves to make sure that we're okay with it.
I think there's a question by Architect Mustafa about the boardroom is that the angle is very odd for cantilever. And perhaps that is a part of the optical illusion, right? I mean, like it's, when you look at it's supported in part by some of the not all the edges are that far away from the actual edge, perhaps, instead of a straight
well,
cantilever.
It is quite an acute angle, but we actually wanted to orientate it partly towards the entrance, and because actually we didn't mention this actually, we have a huge LED display screen covering that whole glazed area.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and the idea actually when we first showed our client, this is the first, before we won the competition, we actually had images of energy usage, graphs on it, and so approaching the building, you could actually see the how much energy was being used at any particular time.
Right.
And so they don't really use it for that so much. They use it to welcome people now. So when they've got visitors coming, and they actually put their names up there, and there's big lettering up on the screen.
Wow.
But so it was partly orientated towards the entrance, but partly orientated towards the river. There is a river over in the far distance, actually. So if you go to the next one.
I think if you want to show something, you have to share your.
Yeah, we just find the particular slide. Let me just see if I can share it again.
I think not many people know that it's a digital screen, because in most of the images.
Yeah. Well, it is. It's. I mean, it's a double glaze. It's double glazing, but behind it there is a LED display screen.
Right.
Can you see it? Do you see the slide?
I can see the slide. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's. This is the presenter's view.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Just swap this like that.
Right.
So
you can see this now.
It's a bit difficult to see, but you can see some stripes in the center. That's where the LED screen is. I think actually maybe the next slide. Yeah, you can actually see a little bit of wording on the glass behind the tree in the middle there.
I think it'll be more apparent at night. The contrast. Okay.
So actually, the client can actually connect to it because the client's head office is in California, and he can actually connect to it, so he can put things up that he wants as well.
Wow.
Straight up here, yeah. Anyway, yes.
Yep. Very interesting. Michael Siu asked, what is the most successful aspect of this project? And given a chance, you want to further explore that and expand further in the next project?
Of course, that's a very personal.
I think both of you have maybe different answers.
Yes, I'm sure. I'm sure. I think for me, well, our philosophy, has been for many, many years, and is this contact with nature. And I think because it is so important to our psychological well-being, and that's been recognized now by psychologists and all sorts of people.
Right.
And but we've been actually pursuing this concept for 30, 40 years or so. So I think with this project, maybe we took it further than we've been able to with other projects. So maybe that's the most successful aspect for me, that we're actually able to fulfill this concept to a greater degree. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I think for me, of course, we are happy with the environmental performance, like the energy savings, for example, and the daylight. But I think also the reactions, the very positive reactions we've gotten, and maybe the best comment was this taxi driver that dropped me off, and we were going through the soulless industrial area, and then he dropped me off at this place, and he was like, "Wow, is this a resort? This is amazing." So a complete layman, that was his reaction.
Yeah. So a very honest and sincere reaction.
Yeah, and I also remember one of the staff at the factory told me over lunch that she had gone to the bank and then in Penang, right? And then the teller had asked, or could see, oh, you work at the Paramit Factory. Oh, it's so nice. Do you have a job for me? I'm ready to quit. So these kind of stories, that's very rewarding. Yeah.
Wow. I think that is the best thank you any designer or any engineer or any architect would get from not just from the client, but from the users, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Joanne Chung asks how long it took to construct this beautiful factory.
It took about 18 months in total.
Right.
It was generally up a bit sooner than that, but I think we got about to CCC. I think it was about 18 months. Yeah, they're a little bit late, but it was a challenging project for the contractor. There's no doubt.
It's definitely, yes.
They hadn't done fair face work before. They hadn't worked with our exacting standards before, tolerance and things like that. But they were so good. They were very willing to learn, and they really got into it. They really loved the project themselves, the contractor, and so they pulled out their own stops to get this done. But it did take a little. Right. They did overrun a little bit.
I'm sure they're proud of the work that they've done.
Yeah,
well.
They are. They are for sure.
Alice Lim asked, "What if this is not a secret? What is the cost per square feet for the building?"
It's from memory, it's probably around about the 300 mark, I think. Don't quote me on that. I can't quite remember, but it's something like that, give or take.
Around, rough ballpark figure of 300. Okay.
Yeah, which is not too bad considering, I think, really. But you might think differently.
Yeah, it looks more expensive than 300 though.
Yeah, but that's good, right?
Yeah, that's good. But it's the amazing details that have been put. I mean, the effort. You can see that there's a lot of passion involved, like naming the rooms and all the artwork that was done. Was that initiated by yourself or the client or? Yeah,
the architects. But the client liked the idea, so
right.
We went ahead with it. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That I mean, hundreds of drawings. I would assume the
I think there was around about 100. Yeah, something like that. If Eugene's online, you can ring in, Eugene, and tell us, right?
Maybe he's watching. Yeah. I saw Lin Ho was watching, so
Oh, Lin Ho. Yeah, Lin Ho's his beautiful photographs. Yeah.
so I'm quite a lot of people are watching.
Okay.
Yingzi Puan asked, appreciate the sharing. I wonder for this very large green project, any landscape architect involved? Can't find them in the list of consultants.
Oh yeah. Okay, sorry about that. Well, it was like this, honestly.
Right.
We designed the landscape, and we had a landscape architect endorse it. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, but that's the truth, right?
That's the truth. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember who it was. That's terrible. Huh? So it was they weren't really. I mean, they did the drawings actually. I should put them in the credit. You're right, actually.
Right.
But we did it. We did the landscape, and we had some issues with the authority because we had too much landscape in. Can you believe it? But anyway, we sorted it out.
Lin Ho just messaged me. He said, "John, I just WhatsApp you the shot of the digital screen."
The shot of what?
The digital screen.
Oh, okay.
So we are getting live feedback here.
Okay.
All right. I think it's a very, very interesting project. I mean, not just in Malaysia, it's one of a kind. I think globally, industrial buildings that are very pleasant and have people happy to work in. It's very rare. And I think it's amazing that you have done such a building in Penang. And
thanks for that. I appreciate that. But isn't it just crucial though that people do love the place they work? Yeah?
Exactly.
And love the buildings. I mean, this is what it's all about, being an architect, right? Isn't it? I think.
And a friend told me, thank God for this factory because it's now easier to convince people to have more greenery in their projects because it's been done before.
Okay, that's great to hear. That's great to hear. Yeah.
I think
actually on that note, there's a new experience on Penang Hill called forest bathing, where you pay 88 ringgit to go into the forest and sort of get into this tranquil healing mode of just being in nature.
Okay.
But of course, you can also just
go here,
get the forest bathing while you're at work.
Yeah.
Wow.
And earn money at the same time.
That forest bathing is like a trek, or?
Yeah, it's actually a Japanese science that has existed since the 80s. So it's actually scientifically proven that once you are in nature, your stress levels reduce and so on. So it's actually good for your health. So it's actually something that the Japanese doctors prescribe patients. They say you have to have 2 or 3 hours of forest bathing every week. And then people go out in the forest and switch off the mobile phone and so on. But of course, it's much healthier just to have it in your everyday life, at your work or also where you live. Yeah.
Wow. It's it's always good to have because most people spend their time either at work or at home. So these two places should be very enjoyable and should be very healthy for not just maybe physically but also for psychological reasons, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And I think your anonymous feedback surveys prove that people do enjoy more greenery, and I think that is a relevant. Is it published somewhere, those studies, or is it just any journals?
It was an in-house one. It's not really published. No.
Right. Okay. Never mind. Maybe it should for people to refer. We are running out of time. We are already like 5 minutes over, and there are so many questions that are coming in. If I start answering all of them, I'm asking you to answer all of them with definitely go up to more than 10 o'clock. So nonetheless, I think you have that YouTube video that you shared. I will share that in the comment section for the video, our live video, and people would still be able to watch this video after this, yeah, if it's not live even. So I would like to formally, on behalf of University Malaya, give the greatest thanks to you, Gregors and John, for spending your time with us and educating us on this. Well, sort of like for a lot of people, this building is a secret that they don't know about. It's they pass by and they ask things, and I think it's not much documentation has been done on it, except for the photographs by Linho, and we are glad to have this unique insider's peek into what's been happening inside. Thank you very much, and on behalf of UM, on behalf of the students, and also on behalf of the Department of Architecture. So with that, I think maybe some last words from you guys.
Thank you very much, John and Gregor, on behalf of Dr. Dorafina, the current head department.
You're welcome. Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Once of these days, we're going to invite you physically after perhaps the non-COVID thingy.
For your information, John has been joining our 5th year crits.
All right.
Yeah, so yeah. And don't worry, we'll call Gregors for our environmental talks.
Yeah, looking forward to that.
Yes. Okay. Any last words, John and Gregors?
You got anything to say?
No, I think we also want to thank you for this opportunity, and I mean, we definitely like to share. We need the word to get out that that you can actually achieve a great spaces without. I mean, of course, you have to do thinking, but it doesn't have to be super expensive. And people always think about cost, but actually,
right,
it is the cheapest building. I mean, that's why the client, he was sort of in the know, right? He knew that it would actually be very expensive to get a normal building because, okay, construction costs might be lower, but then you're stuck with a very high energy bill, high water bill, and people are just not productive because they don't have contact to nature, they are falling sick, they are not productive at work. They also, staff retention is difficult. So actually, if you take a step back and look at the full picture, then this is actually makes so much sense from every angle.
Right.
And it is good to, we do appreciate this opportunity because it is good to show the building, and because it is quite isolated. You know, it's
yes,
up on the this industrial park, and you wouldn't go there unless you're going to the industrial park. You don't pass
right,
it by or anything like that. So it is good to actually get it exposed a little bit. So we're grateful for that.
And again, thank you so much, John. Thank you to the audience for joining us, and do catch our next premier lecture series with architect Lo Ui on the beauty of residential design. Thank you again. Have a good night. Have a great weekend. Bye bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.